Chapter 241, The Orders. The sound of the galloping horses was approaching. On the top of the city gate, the troops didn't shoot their arrows and slowly put their bows down while looking at the silhouettes who were arriving. "Ren Quang," shouted Lin Feng. He then jumped off the horse and glanced at the troops. "Everybody, don't attack," said Lin Feng. He obviously understood that if they attacked, there would be no way back. If they attacked the imperial city, they would be considered as rebels and would inevitably be executed. Those who worked behind the curtains didn't care about the lives of all these soldiers, all they cared about were their own personal interests. "Lin Feng, quickly! Lu Lan doesn't have much time left," said Ren Quang looking anxious. Lin Feng slightly nodded. He had precisely hurried because of that reason. He had been galloping all night rushing over to the imperial city. He knew that he couldn't afford to be slow. Lin Feng looked at the people on the top of the city wall and shouted, "Lin Feng is returning to the imperial city, open the gate." Lin Feng knew how Shuiyu wanted to dispose of him. On the one hand, they wanted to kill him, but on the other hand, they needed him to die at the border without witnesses. At that moment, at the very periphery of the imperial city, the whole crowd was watching the scene unfold. If they killed him, they would be forced to show their real intentions. As expected, when the troops heard Lin Feng's name, they were all startled. They slowly lowered their bows, which made Meng Chong furious. An ice-cold expression appeared on his face. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng," whispered Meng Chong. He then said with a cold tone, "Lin Feng was kidnapped by Moyu. If he was here today, it is probably because he has become a rebel and is now working with them. He cannot enter the imperial city. Besides, there are these rebels as well. Surprisingly, they dare to surround the imperial city, getting ready to attack us with their arrows. We must kill them. Get ready to attack." "Ha?" Lin Feng frowned. "Attack? Rebels? How shameless." Lin Feng wasn't the only one who was surprised. The troops on the top of the city gate were also surprised, including Meng Feng, but orders had to be obeyed, thus the troops raised their bows again, getting ready to fire. "Would you dare?" At that moment, Duan Xinyi was also beside Lin Feng on a horse. The crowd was astonished. It was the princess, Her Highness. Meng Chong was also astonished, his lips were shaking. Meng Chong used to hope he could marry the princess someday, but then Lin Feng crippled his cultivation. He had become a piece of trash and would never be able to marry Duan Xinyi. Besides, he understood why the troops outside the city gate wanted to fight. When he thought about that, a hideous expression appeared on his face. "Fire!" shouted Meng Chong while waving his hand. He looked extremely cruel. When Meng Chong finished talking, Meng Feng, who was behind Meng Chong, went pale. "Don't shoot!" shouted Meng Feng furiously. Even though he wanted to kill Princess Duan Xinyi and Lin Feng, at that moment, they had already returned safely to the imperial city. They couldn't brazenly kill them anymore. That would cause a great deal of trouble. If Meng Chong killed Lin Feng and Duan Xinyi, that would have made some people of the imperial family happy and some others unhappy. Lin Feng wouldn't be too much of an issue, but the emperor's daughter? Who would bear the responsibility for killing her? These thoughts were logical and were common sense, but Meng Chang's heart was filled with hatred and jealousy, which is why he wanted to attack. Pshh. A few arrows whistled through the air. Lin Feng's facial expression was ice-cold. He jumped up in the air, his hand transformed into a sword and he immediately cut the arrows down. "You want to kill the princess? How audacious, these rebels must die," said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. He immediately rushed towards the city gate at incredible speed. At the same time, Ren Quang and Meng Qing were also rushing towards the city gate. Pshh. Lin Feng's hand pierced through the atmosphere. Immediately those who had shot their arrows were killed. They hadn't even had time to react. The soldiers who hadn't shot when they had heard Meng Feng were shocked. Lin Feng and the others had easily landed on the gate tower. "A moment ago, you're the one who gave the order to shoot. You wanted to kill the princess," said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone to Meng Chong. "This guy again." When Meng Chong saw Lin Feng's facial expression, he started shaking. He had thought that if he saw Lin Feng again, he would prestigiously be able to order the troops to kill him, but at that moment, Lin Feng had easily appeared before him. One glance had been enough to destroy his enthusiasm. The only feeling left in his heart was dread. He was really scared of Lin Feng. The last time in the lovesick forest, Lin Feng had been merciless and crippled his cultivation, not letting him escape. He was slowly moving back. Lin Feng's eyes surprisingly sufficed to scare him into a retreat. Meng Feng took a step forwards and looked at the young man in front of him. It was the first time that he met Lin Feng, but many people knew about Lin Feng. Meng Feng obviously knew that Lin Feng had crippled his son's cultivation, making him a piece of trash. Meng Chong didn't do it on purpose. He didn't know that the princess was there. "I will personally make him apologize to the princess." Meng Feng was protecting his son. He hated Lin Feng. He needed to restore peace and remove himself from this event. Unintentionally? He didn't know? Lin Feng was smiling coldly. A moment ago, the princess was still shouting from her horseback. Everybody saw that with their own eyes, but Meng Chong still gave the order to shoot, attempting to murder the princess. Meng Chong must die. Meng Chong didn't see the princess. Meng Feng's cheeks were burning. Lin Feng didn't have time to talk nonsense. He moved forwards while releasing his killing intent. How could he not kill Meng Chong? On the top of the gate, some silhouettes flickered. They all moved in front of Meng Chong. They only saw Lin Feng smile coldly, who then said, Meng Chong wants to kill the princess, he has been sentenced to death. Those who want to protect him are his accomplices and must die. I, Lin Feng, am the princess' personal guard, my job is to protect her. I will kill anyone who threatens her life, no matter who it is, said Lin Feng aggressively. He would kill anyone who attacked the princess, no matter what their status. The crowd clearly heard what Lin Feng had said. What a frivolous young man. Anyone who would threaten the princess would be killed. Try if you dare, said Meng Feng, whose face turned pale. No matter what Meng Chong did, he was his son, was within his territory and his control. Lin Feng was only the princess' personal guard, how could he not get furious after being ignored? When I say that I will kill, I kill. No matter who is in my way, said Lin Feng, sounding extremely domineering. He then took a step and an insane purple hurricane emerged in the atmosphere. A silhouette flickered and moved straight towards Lin Feng to attack him. Lin Feng just raised his hand at an incredible speed and his head had already pierced through that person's heart. The soldiers, when they saw that, started shaking in fear. Nobody dared to risk their lives in front of that purple hurricane. In a flash, purple tentacles appeared from the silhouette, its deadly strength started to move forward. Everybody was pushed back, including Meng Feng. The purple cloud contained a corrosive power too. When people touched it, they felt like if they stayed in contact with it, they would melt. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and rushed towards Meng Chong. Lin Feng was as fast as lightning, therefore, nobody had time to react. Lin Feng grabbed Meng Chong by the neck using only one hand and then directly moved to the edge of the city gate. Meng Chang's body was hanging over the edge, Lin Feng just had to let go and Meng Chong would fall to his death. At that moment, Meng Chang's face looked deathly pale, there wasn't the slightest degree of color in his face, only fear. Lin Feng, don't you dare! Meng Feng had also turned deathly pale and furiously shouted these words, but he only saw that a smile had appeared on Lin Feng's face. Xie troops, hear me, shouted Lin Feng. At that moment, the army outside in front of the gate of the imperial city all said in unison, Roger. Their voices spread through the atmosphere. At that moment, Lin Feng looked like a great commander, majestic and imposing, everybody obeyed him. He could light the fire within the hearts of his soldiers. These soldiers were, once again, feeling full of vitality. Prepare your arrows, shouted Lin Feng. At that moment, all the troops out of the imperial city raised their bows. Both sides had their bows raised. Meng Chong gave the order to kill the princess, this is a capital offense, he must be killed, shouted Lin Feng furiously. At that moment, he let go of Meng Chong, whose body slowly fell from the top of the gate. PSSHH. Thousands of arrows pierced through the air. Meng Chong gave a horrible shriek and his life was put to an end. Suddenly, a red liquid started flowing down the city walls. All these arrows had pierced through his body, which pinned against the city wall. His corpse was hanging from the city walls by thousands of arrows. At that moment, everybody was speechless. How ruthless and powerful. That is how Lin Feng had gained such an illustrious reputation, it seemed like he was at the apex of his power. Chapter 242, The Death of an Officer. Meng Chang's body had been pinned onto the city wall by thousands of arrows. The crowd was dumbstruck. The ones above the city wall, even though they couldn't see it, could imagine what happened. They had all seen the cloud of arrows a moment before. Besides, the soldiers outside of the imperial city were punishing him because he had tried to kill the princess. The reason was absolutely valid, so nobody said anything. After all, Meng Chong had given the order to kill the princess, everyone witnessed that. Meng Feng was shaking, his eyes were wide open, he was dumbstruck. Meng Chong, shouted Meng Feng extremely loudly. He then moved towards the edge of the gate and looked down. In a flash, his face turned red, that was his son, pinned onto the city wall with so many arrows, his little boy. Arg, Lin Feng, shouted Meng Feng furiously. He turned around and looked at Lin Feng with killing intent. You killed my son. Meng Feng sounded like he couldn't believe it and was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Please open the gate, the princess and I are in a hurry, said Lin Feng sounding indifferent. He looked particularly calm. Open the gate, said Meng Feng with a hideous grin on his face. He then said evilly, Lin Feng, you broke into the imperial city, killed my son in spite of my higher military rank, and have no respect for the hierarchy of Shuiyu. Ha! Lin Feng was surprised, but smiled coldly immediately after. Meng Feng was trying to accuse Lin Feng. What an old fox, even though he was furious and enraged, he still remained sober-headed and declared Lin Feng's faults, which would make it much easier to attack Lin Feng after. Officer Meng Chong tried to kill the princess, everybody saw it. He had to be killed for his own actions. Everybody thinks that what I did was the right thing to do. Besides, I will say it once more, officer, the princess and I have to handle important matters and are in a hurry, so open the gate and let us into the imperial city. Lin Feng's voice was filled with coldness, his words were sharp and poignant. Handle important matters? You think that you can save Lu Tsonglan, said Meng Feng while staring at Lin Feng and smiling evilly. He then added 3 words, in your dreams, boom. Meng Feng had just finished his sentence when an ice-cold deadly energy emerged from Lin Feng's body. Meng Feng was surprised and said, what are you doing? Lin Feng remained silent, his silhouette flickered and his hand turned into a sharp sword which pierced through the atmosphere. Meng Feng let out a horrible shriek. Meng Feng had tried to block Lin Feng's attack with his forearms, however Lin Feng proceeded to cut off his arms with his attack. That attack astonished the crowd once again. Meng Gufeng's troops, a moment before, had wanted to attack Lin Feng, but Ren Quang and Meng Qing were there, preventing them from moving forward. They could only calmly watch the scene. Meng Chong wanted to kill the princess. I had to protect the princess and kill Meng Chong, which is why Meng Gufeng has a personal grudge with me. Besides, he continues to refuse the princess entry into the imperial city and doesn't respect the hierarchy of the Shuiyu country. I, Lin Feng, will kill anyone who represents a threat to the security of the princess. Lin Feng was standing there with his hair was fluttering in the wind, his voice was resonating across the horizon. People's hearts were pounding. Not only had Lin Feng killed Meng Chong, but he also wanted to kill Meng Gufeng. He would kill anyone in his way. When he finished talking, Lin Feng took a step and punched Meng Gufeng. Immediately after, Meng Gufeng's face turned deathly pale, blood started gushing from his mouth, but he was still evilly staring at Lin Feng. Meng Gufeng had also broken through to the 8th Ling Chi layer, just like Lin Feng, but Lin Feng knew about Earth Fusion, which made him much quicker. Meng Gufeng, a moment before, had been too negligent and his arms had been cut off. You are the only person responsible for the path you chose. There was an incredible sword energy which emerged from Lin Feng's hand and immediately penetrated into Meng Gufeng's body and then crushed his vital organs. With a flip of his hand, Lin Feng sent Meng Gufeng flying over the edge of the city walls. The troops outside of the imperial city released their arrows which whistled through the air, and Officer Meng Gufeng joined his son, pinned to the city wall, lifeless. Lin Feng punished them both as criminals. In the world of cultivation, strength was the only thing that mattered, strength was justice. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the troops. Finally, he saw someone who had the armor of an officer. Are you the non-commissioned officer? Coldly asked Lin Feng. That person's heart was pounding. He had personally witnessed Meng Chong and Meng Gufeng's deaths. They had suffered a cruel fate. It was like the widespread rumors about the crown prince, whoever dared to contradict him, died. Indeed, said that person while nodding nervously. The princess and I need to go into the imperial city, we have things to do, quickly open the gate, said Lin Feng calmly. That person was stupefied and remained silent. I will give you 5 seconds to think carefully about your next actions. If you don't let the princess in, you are committing an offense against the Shuiyu imperial clan, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. He then immediately started counting, 1, 2, open the gate. The non-commissioned officer's facial expression was rigid. How could he even give Lin Feng time to start the countdown? That guy had killed Meng Chong and his father. Lin Feng wouldn't hesitate to kill him too. No matter how the situation would be, the most important thing was to survive, the future problems had to be ignored. Open the gate, said the soldiers repeating the order. A rumbling noise spread through the atmosphere, the gigantic bronze gate slowly opened itself. Officer Ren, you and the troops escort the princess into the imperial city and ensure her security, said Lin Feng sounding cold and detached. Ren Quang nodded and said, all right. Immediately, Ren Quang jumped in the air and landed back onto his horse's back. He shouted, let's escort the princess into the imperial city and ensure her safety. The troops, who covered a wide and vast area, all started galloping towards the imperial city. The crowd was speechless. Ensuring the protection of the princess was clearly an excuse to allow the troops entry into the imperial city. But the princess didn't say anything. Lin Feng was controlling the entire situation, who would dare say anything? The noise of the horses galloping on the ground was unceasing. Lin Feng waited for all the troops to enter the imperial city and then Meng Qing and he entered as well. Hanging on the imperial city walls were 2 corpses pinned with many arrows. The sight was, as before, a shocking for anyone who saw it. Lin Feng was an outstanding young man whose heart was burning with boldness. He had managed to reverse the course of the events once again. He was so bold that he had even killed Meng Chong and Officer Meng without even blinking. He had ruthlessly killed them. Of course, in order to be bold, one also had to have the appropriate strength. Lin Feng could easily defeat Officer Meng Gufeng, who had broken through to the 8th Chi layer. He was extremely strong. The crowd had seen how monstrously strong he was. If he didn't die, he would one day become as monstrous as the 8 high officials of Shuiyu. Besides, he would soon be even stronger, even more monstrous, than the high officials at the bottom of the rankings. Chapter 243, The Chi CA Officer. In the Imperial City, there was an extremely vast square made of bluestone. It was situated in a lively district of the Imperial City. The flow of people heading in that direction was huge. In the middle of that square, there was a bright red flight of stairs made from metal which gave a dazzling light. That flight of stairs led up to a white stage. On that stage, there was a huge metallic pillar which had a cross symbol at the top. Chains were hanging from that cross. There were 2 extremely sharp hooks. The view was shocking. The purpose of these 2 hooks was to skewer the arms of a person attached to the cross. That stage was the death sentence stage and was used to kill those who had an illustrious social status but had angered the imperial family. Thus, everybody could witness the execution. After killing the criminal, the corpse would be hung from the cross by skewering his arms with the hooks. The body would then be hung there for weeks as a warning to everyone else. It let everyone know what the punishment was for angering the imperial family. At that moment, there was an ocean of people around the death sentence stage. They completely filled the huge square. However, those directly surrounding the death sentence stage were all Shuiyu soldiers. No one could get close to the stage. I really would never have thought that General Lu Sonlan the Divine Arrow, who was so majestic, so illustrious, would end up here today. In the crowd, some people were sighing. They were looking at the silhouette on the stage. It was precisely Lu Sonlan. At that moment, Lu Lan's body was tied up. Even though he was considered a criminal and was going to be killed, he looked neither humble nor arrogant. Lu Lan had no regrets, he was innocent. In front of the crowd, two beautiful eyes were watching Lu Lan on the stage. Glistening teardrops were flowing down a set of bright red cheeks. Father, you have sacrificed your youth for Shuiyu and even devoted your entire life for it, and this is how they express their gratitude. That beautiful person was Lu Fei. She looked more mature and more beautiful than back in the days of the Yunhai sect, but at that moment, she was feeling lonely, desperate and hopeless. Her heart was shattering into 1,000 pieces. Fei, remember what your father told you, stay safe, live on. You will be able to avenge him only if you're alive. Next to Lu Fei was a middle-aged man. He looked calm but his heart felt painful as well, especially when he saw Duan Tianlang. He wished he could cut out his organs and bathe in his blood. Everything happened because of Duan Tianlang, including the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers, but he was blaming Lu Lan for all these things. He was blaming Lu Lan for the kidnapping of the princess as well. It was a terrible fate for a hero like Lu Lan. Everything was ridiculous. Lu Fei nodded, but could not utter a word, her heart felt heavy. She had to avenge her father. Duan Tianlang could not be allowed to live, either he would die or she would. Your father has always been convinced that Lin Feng would protect and take care of you, that nothing would happen to him. After today, we will go and look for him even if it means going to MOU, said the middle-aged man. Lu Fei remained silent. Where was Lin Feng at that moment? She didn't know why, but at that moment, she terribly missed Lin Feng. She had never needed someone so much. When a woman feels lonely, she always thinks about the person whom she cares for the most. Lu Fei, at that moment, felt powerless. Her father was in front of her and was about to get executed, but she couldn't do anything to prevent it from happening. She could only calmly watch her father get killed. Duan Tianlang looked at the sky and had a smile of happiness on his face. Duan Tianlang had been waiting for this day for so many years. He had always wanted to kill Lu Lan and at that moment, he was about to be executed. How could Duan Tianlang not be happy? The time has come, let's get prepared, said Duan Tianlang sounding detached. Immediately after, four strong cultivators pulled the chains which tied Lu Lan, his bindings suddenly tightened, and then, his body was pulled into the air. Lu Lan didn't complain, his limbs were pulled in each direction and he was locked in place, he just continued gazing into the distance. He looked calm, he hated the choices he made in life, he wished he could go back in time. Raise your bows, said Duan Tianlang sounding cold and detached. On the bright red flight of stairs, many soldiers raised their bows and aimed at Lu Lan. There were 81 archers, Lu Lan obviously didn't have any chance to escape. A sharp chi spread through the atmosphere. Was this their way of humiliating Lu Lan? His nickname was the Divine Arrow, he was an expert in archery, and they were going to execute him using archery. However, at that moment, the crowd could feel that the ground was shaking, and it was getting more and more intense. They were surprised. The sound of galloping horses spread through the atmosphere. The ground was shaking more and more violently. Duan Tianlang narrowed his eyes and looked at the distance. He only saw Qixia cavalry approaching in a large force, they looked like they were flying through the air, they looked insanely powerful. They were really the Qixia troops. What's going on? Duan Tianlang was stupefied. How did the Qixia cavalry make it there? They were supposed to be blocked at the city gate. It was impossible for them to come into the imperial city. Qixia cavalry, they came in. Yes, Uncle Jiu, your army, the Qixia cavalry. Lu Fei looked moved, Jiu Qixia was with her and Ren Qingquan was leading the Qixia cavalry for him. When he went to the imperial city, he thought that the Qixia cavalry would never be able to enter the imperial city. At that moment, Jiu Qixia saw a young and handsome man leading them. A smile appeared on his face. Fei, it's Lin Feng, nothing is impossible for that boy. Surprisingly, he managed to gain entry for the Qixia soldiers into the imperial city, said Jiu Qixia in a low voice. Lin Feng's determination and willpower were impressive. He had completely altered the course of events, he had then killed the kidnappers and rescued the princess, and on top of that, he returned unscathed. Lin Feng had the ability to shatter everyone's expectations. There were tears of joy in Lu Fei's eyes at that moment, that was perfect timing on Lin Feng's part, and besides, he had brought the powerful Qixia cavalry with him, he would definitely be able to protect her father. However, they seemed to be forgetting that Duan Tianlang was extremely determined to kill Lu Lan. Lin Feng. Duan Tianlang's facial expression turned evil. He immediately shouted, "Get ready to kill Lu Lan." "Roger," shouted the archers in unison. Immediately, Lu Fei and Jiu Qixia's facial expressions drastically changed. "Duan Tianlang, don't you dare," furiously shouted Jiu Qixia while jumping in the air across the crowd. Boom boom boom. Jiu Qixia's blows killed a few of the archers. "Release the arrows," said Duan Tianlang with a cold smile on his face. The arrows whistled through the air, moving straight towards Lu Lan. At that moment, Jiu Qixia's face turned deathly pale. He immediately threw himself forwards at full speed. He had dived in front of Lu Lan's body to protect him from the arrows. His entire body was releasing chi in the form of a strong wind. His entire body was covered with a bright and resplendent chi. "Get away," shouted Lu Lan, his facial expression drastically changed. At that moment, Lu Lan's body was tightly tied up and he couldn't use his cultivation. All Jiu Qixia could do was protect Lu Lan with his body. Uncle Jiu, cried Lu Fei in alarm. Immediately after, the sounds of the arrows piercing through the chi spread in the air. The arrows then continued and pierced into Jiu Qixie's body, but they didn't continue moving towards Lu Tsonglan. Jiu Qixie's body was their final destination. Brother, cried Lu Tsonglan. His heart felt infinitely painful. On his forehead was a pitch-black seal. That seal kept glowing, making him unable to use his strength. Die together, shouted Duan Tianlang coldly. He then started moving, but at that moment, a piercingly cold energy arrived on his body. He felt as if he was going to freeze on the spot. Frozen heart. Duan Tianlang stopped moving. His face turned deathly pale. He turned around and saw a wave of pure chi roll towards him. It was brutally cold. In a flash, he felt the extreme coldness on his body and was projected backwards, unable to move closer to Lu Tsonglan. Die, said Lin Feng furiously. Lin Feng was brandishing his sword. Its light was extremely resplendent and dazzling to the eyes. The archers were unceasingly firing their arrows. Lin Feng's expression revealed pure killing intent. Ren Chengquang immediately killed the 4 people who were pulling the 4 chains which were holding Lu Tsonglan in place. Blood was unceasingly flowing from Jiu Qixie's mouth, but he was smiling. General, I will sacrifice my life for yours. After I die, Lin Feng can become the officer of the Qixie troops. Arg. Lu Tsonglan was endlessly grieved. His eyes were filled with tears. Jiu Qixie had been an extremely good friend for a dozen years. They had never argued and had always regarded each other as real brothers. They considered each other family. Many times, they had fought battles shoulder to shoulder. However, at that moment, Jiu Qixie had sacrificed himself. General, I would like to say one last thing. Jiu Qixie was leaning against Lu Tsonglan. He then leant over and whispered something in Lu Tsonglan's ear. The intensity of Jiu Qixie's voice was dropping. When he finished talking, he looked at Lu Tsonglan and smiled at him. General, for more than a dozen years, I have never called you anything else other than General when addressing you. Today, I will call you my brother. The word brother had a deep meaning. After saying that, Jiu Qixie's voice lost in intensity, his breath became weak and his vision became blurry. His vitality was quickly leaving his body and his eyes slowly closing. He was calmly lying against Lu Tsonglan's chest with an unchanging smile on his face. Lu Tsonglan was looking at Jiu Qixie and an endless stream of tears started to fall from his eyes. Brothers, could such a simple word really describe the relationship that these two had over these countless years? Jiu Qixie was motionless, lying against Lu Tsonglan's chest. He would never wake again. Chapter 244, Who's the Traitor? The ground was unceasingly shaking, people were shouting, the Qixie cavalry were galloping, and chaos reigned over the crowd. They were all running away from this scene. In a short moment, the Shuiyu soldiers were not encircling the death sentence stage anymore. Instead, the Qixie cavalry had replaced them as the Shuiyu soldiers backed away. At the same time, a large group of Shuiyu soldiers were coming to attack from the back of the stage. But the Qixie cavalry all suddenly stopped and looked at the silhouette leaning against Lu Tsonglan's chest. In the past, that person used to be their leader, and he was now killed. Hiss. The spears of the Qixie troops flew through the air. Everyone's heart started to race. Qixie soldiers were willing to encircle the imperial city for their general. They were also capable of attacking Shuiyu soldiers for their officer. What was happening within that huge area was complete chaos. Thousands of soldiers had already died. What was the reason? Lin Feng remained uncommunicative. Jiu Qixie was a true leader and a great man. Lin Feng's sword was dancing through the air. He cut the chains around Lu Tsonglan's body, but Jiu Qixie was still leaning against him in silence. Lin Feng, you came into the imperial city with rebel forces and personally rescued the criminal, Lu Tsonglan. You deserve a death sentence, said Duan Tianlang, whose voice sounded ice cold. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Rebel forces, said Lin Feng while fixedly staring at Duan Tianlang. His tone was cold too. Die, shouted one of the Qixie soldiers. Die. That shout was imposing and heavy. Deadly energy spread through the atmosphere. The Qixie soldier raised his long spear. Stop, shouted Lin Feng while turning around. In a flash, everybody quieted down. They were all staring at Lin Feng. They didn't understand why he had stopped them. Nonetheless, they all stopped moving and remained silent. I haven't given you any order to attack. If you attack, I will personally kill you, said Lin Feng coldly. The hearts of the Qixie cavalry were pounding, but when they saw how strict Lin Feng looked, they all remained silent. Encircle the stage, said Lin Feng coldly. The Qixie soldiers obeyed his order and started galloping. In a flash, the Qixie soldiers encircled the entire death sentence stage so that not even a single drop of water could trickle through. At that moment, Lin Feng had become a sort of pillar for these soldiers. Even though he wasn't their direct superior, everybody obeyed his orders. You will die. Duan Han was standing next to Duan Tianlang. He narrowed his eyes and intensely stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had led a rebel army. Even though Lin Feng was considered a hero in Shuiyu, he had committed a crime and had to pay for it. Lin Feng coldly glanced at Duan Han. Duan Han's heart twitched. He then closed his mouth, and then Lin Feng disregarded him like he would an insect. He started walking to the front of the death sentence stage. Bring Her Highness up here, said Lin Feng. Immediately after, some soldiers wearing bronze masks slowly arrived. Behind them was a beautiful silhouette on a horse. That beautiful woman made people's heartbeats accelerate. She looked pure and noble. Incredibly, that was the Princess of Shuiyu, Duan Xine. Princess, you have returned. Lin Feng really went to MOU alone and returned with the princess, thought some people in the crowd while looking at that beautiful silhouette. Concerning Duan Tianlang, he narrowed his eyes, not only had Lin Feng come but the princess too. Soldiers, salute your princess, said Lin Feng while glancing at the soldiers. They didn't understand what Lin Feng was doing at that moment, but knelt down on one knee and shouted in unison, Your Highness. Lin Feng calmly looked at the soldiers surrounding the death sentence stage and said coldly, How come Duan Tianlang's army did not salute the princess? Is she not your princess? Are you really this disrespectful? Duan Tianlang was stupefied. He immediately shouted coldly, Why are you not kneeling down? The Shuiyu soldiers obeyed the order and knelt down, while shouted in unison, Your Highness. Duan Tianlang salutes Your Highness. Your Highness has come back. This is great news for our country, Shuiyu, said Duan Tianlang while slightly bowing and lowering his head. This is all thanks to Lin Feng, said Duan Xinye calmly while coldly looking at Duan Tianlang. When Duan Tianlang heard Duan Xinye's manner of speaking, his facial expression changed. He didn't know what to say. He wanted Lin Feng to die and accused him of having brought rebel forces. But at that moment, Lin Feng had come back with the princess, which was an incredible military exploit. As expected, Lin Feng is our country's young hero, said Duan Tianlang while raising his head and then said in a small voice while smiling, but even though Lin Feng saved you, he has still committed a great crime by gathering rebel forces and bringing them into the imperial city, and that is not an insignificant crime. Duan Tianlang is still thinking of how he can falsely accuse others of crimes, said Lin Feng indifferently. Duan Tianlang was stubborn and said, Meritorious acts are meritorious acts, crimes are crimes. I Duan Tianlang must declare your faults for the sake of justice. Justice? Duan Tianlang, how long has it been since we last saw each other? It seems like you get even more shameless each time we meet. I thought it was impossible to be more shameless than you when we last met, but once again you have proven me wrong, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng surprisingly dared to call Duan Tianlang shameless in front of everybody. The ground started shaking again and rumbling noises spread through the atmosphere. The crowd was surprised. The crowd moved back again and opened a path. At that moment, an incredible number of soldiers were coming. It was the Imperial Guards. Duan Tianlang felt relieved. A short moment after, the army of guards arrived. The Qixia soldiers surrounding the death sentence stage wanted to attack but Lin Feng waved his hand, signaling them to stand their ground and remain calm. Two silhouettes slowly came from the group of Imperial Guards. One of them was wearing armor, he looked majestic and powerful, while the other was a handsome young man, the second prince, Duan Wuya. Did you kill Meng Gufeng and Meng Chong? This person is Meng Han, the officer of the Imperial Guards. Officer Meng Gufeng was his brother, said Duan Wuya. Indeed, said Lin Feng sounding calm, cold, and detached. Ha? Duan Tianlang was stupefied. Lin Feng had killed Meng Gufeng and Meng Chong? Inside, he was laughing coldly. He was evilly staring at Lin Feng and then said, Lin Feng, you saved the princess, which is a military exploit, but acting arrogantly, you dared to kill an officer and then bring rebel forces into the imperial city. These are both extreme crimes against the country. To pay for your crimes, the only solution is death. Then, Duan Tianlang turned around and looked to Duan Wuya, Your Highness, please punish Lin Feng for his crimes. Duan Wuya looked relaxed, he had perfectly mastered his emotions. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth and he said, Lin Feng, Duan Tianlang wants to punish you for your crimes, is there anything you want to say? Yes, said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. He then immediately turned to Duan Tianlang and said, Duan Tianlang, during the war, because he wanted to kill me, he created chaos within our army, allowing the MOU army to exploit the weakness that he created. Hundreds of thousands of Shuiyu soldiers died so he could have the opportunity to kill me. It was a bloodbath. Now he wants to punish me for my crimes with a death sentence. I don't think that it's a strange thing at all. When Lin Feng finished talking, the crowd was astonished. Duan Tianlang had caused chaos within their own army because he wanted to kill Lin Feng? From what they had heard, Lu Tsonglon was responsible for that. He's talking nonsense, Your Highness. Not only is Lin Feng a traitor but he is also a lying little rat. Don't trust him, said Duan Tianlang. Of course, he wasn't going to admit his faults. Lin Feng perfectly knew that. Duan Tianlang is calling me a traitor, yet he gives no explanation and wants punishment. At what moment have I rebelled? Asked Lin Feng. You came into the imperial city with rebel forces, killed Meng Gufeng as well as Meng Chong, you encircled the death sentence stage and rescued Lu Tsonglon, who is a criminal. Everybody saw this with their own eyes. Is that enough? Shut your filthy mouth, furiously shouted Lin Feng, his eyes unveiled killing intent. He was exasperated. He then pointed at the Qixia cavalry. Duan Tianlang, these soldiers have courageously fought against the enemy. We encircled them inside the city and burnt them alive inside. We killed hundreds of thousands of the MOU army. In the end they were forced to retreat. At that moment, I'm asking you, where were you? You had already deserted the army and ran back to the imperial city like a little scared dog. You are really audacious. And now what? You are calling me a traitor, but I want to ask you, who are you to call me a traitor? Are you the one who decides? What status do you hold where you think that by calling me a traitor, I instantly become one? Lin Feng's voice sounded extremely cold. Duan Tianlang was speechless. The crowd was also astonished. They had killed hundreds of thousands of MOU soldiers in Duanren city and made them retreat. At that moment, Duan Tianlang had already run away. How could he judge someone else's faults? Chapter 245, Duan Tianlang's interrogation. Duan Tianlang looked glum. He then coldly said, the imperial city is a holy place in Shuiyu. Is it normal for an army to enter it by force without permission? Is it normal to kill an officer and his son when entering the city? If that is not being a traitor, then what is? The princess and I rushed back to the imperial city, then some soldiers attempted to assassinate us. Besides, they were all Shuiyu soldiers. They knew that the princess was there, but they still tried to kill us. I want to ask you, Duan Tianlang, doesn't the whole army now follow your commands? Nonsense, how could they be my soldiers? Quickly refuted Duan Tianlang angrily. Well then, the most amusing part is that even if they were not your soldiers, my role is to protect the princess and I ordered the Qixia cavalry to protect her and accompany the princess to the imperial city. However, Duan Tianlang, you call me a traitor and want to kill me. You also called these soldiers rebel forces. If I understand your argument, you're clearly saying that we are a rebel army and deserve to die, because we protected the princess against countless squads of Shuiyu soldiers that you claim were not under your control, is that right? Lin Feng's words made Duan Tianlang's face sink. Lin Feng had only said a few words, but he had exposed Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng's last words had been so eloquent that they cornered Duan Tianlang. Of course, protecting the princess is not a crime, but Officer Meng Gufeng and Meng Chang's deaths, how do you explain them? Things are not as simple as you would have others believe, said Duan Tianlang looking evil. I was outside of the imperial city. Meng Chong knew that the princess was amongst us but still gave the Shuiyu soldiers the order to fire arrows at us, including the princess. Duan Tianlang, I, Lin Feng, want to ask you, was killing him the right thing to do? Duan Tianlang narrowed his eyes and said, yes, he deserved to die. Well then, I will ask you something else. Meng Chang's father, Officer Meng Gufeng, let his son give the order to kill the princess and then committed another offense by preventing the princess from entering the imperial city. Was killing him the right thing to do? Lin Feng's voice was cold and sharp. It was the right thing to do, said Duan Tianlang, agreeing with Lin Feng. Duan Tianlang, you're saying it yourself, they deserve to die, so now I want to ask you, what crime have I committed? Am I a traitor because I came into the imperial city with soldiers who were protecting the princess, said Lin Feng coldly while staring at Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng had prevented the Qixia soldiers from attacking because he had a plan. A few tens of thousands soldiers was a minuscule amount. If they had attacked, they would have immediately been considered as a rebel army and would have been wiped out. Humph, you protected the princess, that is indeed a meritorious act, but a moment before, you killed some soldiers which belonged to the enforcement troops and rescued the criminal Lu Songlong, isn't that a crime? Of course that is not a crime, said Lin Feng while staring at Duan Tianlang and then continued, General Lu Songlong went to war and fought against Mou for our country, Shuiyu, but you abandoned him, you're a deserter who accused him of your own crimes. How could I not save him? Duan Tianlang had a hideous expression on his face. Lin Feng was, once again, humiliating him in front of everyone. Duan Tianlang, no need to hurry and justify yourself. I have been answering so many questions, however you have your own crimes to account for, said Lin Feng with a smile yet not a smile on his face. He then continued. Duan Tianlang, the Qixia cavalry and I were protecting the princess, why can't you distinguish good from bad? Why do you say that we have committed crimes? Why did you hurry to accuse us of various crimes? Why are you trying at every possible occasion to sentence me to death? Besides, when I came here, why did you try and hurry the execution of Lu Songlong? Also, when the princess and I came back to the city, we were attacked by several squads of Shuiyu soldiers. As far as I know, you command those soldiers. Are you not the one who ordered them to kill me and the princess? Lin Feng's questions made the crowd astonished. It seemed like that entire story wasn't as simple as they had thought. All your questions are attempting to harm my reputation. I will refrain from answering them, said Duan Tianlang coldly. He didn't care. What could Lin Feng do anyway? You have the right not to care, but I want to ask you something. Has General Lu Songlong committed any crime? Duan Tianlang was furious and really wanted to kill Lin Feng. As far as Lu Songlong, everybody knew about him, nothing could be kept secret. Lu Songlong sowed disorder amongst the troops, making us lose a battle against Mou, leading to the death of hundreds of thousands of troops, and he didn't protect the princess who was kidnapped. Are all these crimes enough for him to be sentenced to death? This is your version of events. The person who committed all of these crimes was it not actually you, said Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. Immediately after, he pointed at Duan Wuya and said, the second prince is here as a witness. I hope that you would not dare to lie in the face of our second prince. It was me, admitted Duan Tianlang as he forced the words from his mouth. Hee, how shameless, what a shameless dog, but on the other hand, I am not surprised, said Lin Feng while smiling. His tone was humiliating Duan Tianlang. I just want to ask, you, Duan Tianlang, you say that the princess was kidnapped. Where was she kidnapped exactly? Was she in one of Lu Songlang's tents at that moment, or was she in one of your tents? Lin Feng smiled and said, the princess is here before us. I hope that you would not be planning to tell any lies. Duan Tianlang was blankly staring at Lin Feng. His mouth was about to move, but then Duan Wuya spoke, Uncle, for the sake of justice, please reply to Lin Feng's questions. I will be fair. The situation was awkward for Duan Tianlang, he said in a low voice. She was in one of the tents from my campsite. When the crowd heard Duan Tianlang, they burst into an uproar. Surprisingly, it really was exactly as Lin Feng was explaining. Since those are the facts, there is something that I don't really understand. If the princess was kidnapped in one of your tents, why would Lu Songlong have to bear the responsibility for it? How has he committed a crime? Besides, you still have the face to order Lu Songlang's execution. I would like to hear your explanation. Lin Feng was speaking extremely loudly so that everybody could clearly hear what he was saying. Please explain. shouted all of the Qixia soldiers who were encircling the death sentence stage. Duan Tianlang's facial expression was utterly hideous. At that moment, if Lin Feng and Duan Xinyi hadn't returned, Lu Canlan would have already been executed. The entire situation had changed. Lu Canlan is a general. He didn't properly ensure the security of the campsite, giving the MOU troops an opportunity to kidnap the princess. Of course that it is a crime, said Duan Tianlang, trying to pass the blame again, but obviously, his argument couldn't persuade anyone in the crowd any longer. So that's the reason, said Lin Feng while smiling. Well, I was there too, and at the moment when I tried to chase the kidnappers, your troops obstructed my path and said that I plotted against the princess. You were the one who always wanted me dead. Immediately after the princess was kidnapped, you were already there to execute me, but did not see the kidnappers. How did you manage to do that? When Lin Feng said that, everybody looked at Duan Tianlang expecting a prompt answer. Everybody wanted to know what really happened on the battlefield that had led to the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Duan Tianlang remained silent. Since Duan Tianlang remained silent, I will say what happened myself. Duan Tianlang, you wanted to make it appear as if I was the culprit and sacrificed the princess in order to settle a personal grudge with me. When Lu Canlan saw that you were trying to kill me unjustly, he brought his army to stop you and then you ordered your soldiers to attack his. Clearly this was the act of a noble war hero. Besides, once disorder had been sown amongst the army, the MOU army attacked and they killed hundreds of thousands from the army. Lin Feng's voice was calm and solemn. While looking at Duan Tianlang, he said, Duan Tianlang, is what I am saying the truth or not? The hearts of the people in the crowd were pounding. Surprisingly, Duan Tianlang was the person who caused so many deaths and Lu Canlan was to be executed for Duan Tianlang's crimes. Nonsense, furiously shouted Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng was smiling and then continued, I am not done talking. Duan Tianlang, there is no need for you to try and cover up the truth any longer. After the chaos, and after hundreds of thousands of soldiers had been killed, the Shuiyu army returned to Duanren City. There was evidence that the person who kidnapped the princess was working for Moyu. Besides, at the moment when the princess had been kidnapped, it was soldiers under your command that blocked my path and let the kidnappers escape. They were traitors, and yet again they were surprisingly under your command. I can say that there isn't a single person within the army who doesn't know about these acts of treason. What explanation can you provide? So that's how it happened. The person who kidnapped the princess was from MOU and Duan Tianlang was the one giving the orders. Besides, he was using every opportunity to kill Lin Feng. That news was shocking. After that, Lu Canlan and I fought against the enemy, organized an ambush in Duanren City and set it on fire. At that moment, you, Duan Tianlang, had already deserted to the Imperial City. Everyone knows what happened after. You changed the entire story and gave Shuiyu a false version of events in which Lu Canlan was responsible for your crimes, then you had done your best to execute Lu Canlan. Besides, the princess and I were missing and assumed dead, so we could not testify to your crimes. The problem is that if either of us returned alive, you would have been in trouble, so you ordered several squads of soldiers to kill us on the way. When Lin Feng finished talking, the entire crowd was drowned into silence. The crowd was now having doubts. Maybe Duan Tianlang was really the mastermind behind this entire plot. Chapter 246, The Marquis and His Fief. Lin Feng, you're just trying to ruin my reputation. What you're saying is a pack of lies. I have never dispatched anyone to kill you or the princess. Besides, I suspect that you're the one who kidnapped the princess, and it is only because you have threatened her and she's under pressure that she listens to you, said Duan Tianlang while making a false accusation. Is that so? How come the high-ranking soldiers who tried to kill me told me that they were only obeying orders and the Black Guard lieutenants confirmed that you were collaborating with MOU? You sowed disorder within our army which resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. If you were not working with MOU, why would you have attacked Lu Canlan's army? You, Duan Tianlang, are good at secretly plotting against people, said Lin Feng sounding cold and detached. The crowd was astonished. Duan Tianlang had collaborated with MOU? Lin Feng's words were too powerful. These crimes were enough for Duan Tianlang to be sentenced to death a few times over. Duan Tianlang's heart was also pounding. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Surprisingly, Lin Feng was also declaring that Duan Tianlang had collaborated with MOU. Lin Feng, I devoted my life to Shuiyu and you dare say that I collaborated with the enemy. How am I supposed to let you live? Said Duan Tianlang while releasing a deadly chi. He really wanted to kill Lin Feng. So that's how it is, you really did commit all of these crimes. I said that you collaborated with MOU and again the only thing you can do is try to silence me. Apart from that crime, you also deserted and created chaos within the troops, which resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. It was a bloodbath. Then, you tried to make Lu Canlan bear the responsibility for all of these crimes, then you almost killed him. Also, because of you, the officer of the Qixia army, Zhou Qixia, is now dead. How could the army of Qixia forgive you? Lin Feng sounded imposing and domineering. Immediately after, he looked at the soldiers and said, Tell me, can you forgive Duan Tianlang? No. We can't. The tens of thousands of Qixia soldiers were shouting loudly and aggressively. Duan Tianlang suddenly had the impression that he was being absorbed by Lin Feng. All right, shouted Lin Feng. Immediately after, he looked at the second prince and said, Your Highness, you have seen it too. I only said a few truths and Duan Tianlang tries to kill me. Besides, the soldiers cannot forgive him for what he has done. Now, if Duan Tianlang kills me, I will have no regrets because I have done nothing wrong. However, I would like to ask Your Highness and Officer Meng not to intervene in this fight. Duan Wuya had remained silent, almost the entire time. He looked pensive while looking at Lin Feng. He was also surprised. Lin Feng's words had been sharp, harsh and powerful. Duan Tianlang couldn't reply at all. At that moment, a battle was probably going to break out, and if Officer Meng didn't get involved, Lin Feng would have the advantage. At the moment, I cannot clearly distinguish what is right and wrong, but there is already a profound hatred between Duan Tianlang and you. If he wants to fight against you, I will not prevent him from doing so. I want to see if he believes he has the required ability to kill you, said Duan Wuya indifferently. Everybody was astonished. Duan Wuya said that he was wondering if Duan Tianlang had the ability to kill Lin Feng, but actually, that was covering his tacit consent for Lin Feng to dispose of Duan Tianlang as he wished. But everybody understood what Duan Wuya meant. He had agreed and the crowd was astonished. Duan Tianlang also remained silent. He felt ice-cold chill in his heart. Duan Wuya was not hiding his intentions anymore, he wanted to kill him. Officer Meng, said Duan Tianlang while glancing at Duan Wuya and then immediately looking at Meng Han. Duan Tianlang has a high status within the imperial family. I, Meng Han, am the officer of the Imperial Guard. I have to protect the entire imperial family. I obviously couldn't accept it if anything happens to Duan Tianlang, said Meng Han sounding calm. He was clearly on Duan Tianlang's side. Duan Xinyi and Duan Wuya were worried about Lin Feng. They would help him even if it meant contradicting Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng was calmly looking at everything that was happening around him. Besides, Meng Han, who was the officer of the Imperial Guards, didn't even care about making Duan Wuya lose face. It seems like the fact that Duan Wuya and Meng Han both came has a profound meaning. It shows that they are both in opposing factions, thought Lin Feng. The things that happened within the Imperial family were hard to understand. He. When Duan Wuya heard Meng Han, he laughed, but the laugh also contained some coldness. An officer of the Imperial Guard, indeed, thought Duan Wuya. Immediately after, he started walking slowly towards Duan Xinyi and asked, Xinyi, is what Lin Feng said the truth? Did you really get kidnapped in Duan Tianlang's tent? Yes, it is the truth, said Duan Xinyi while nodding and then added, on that day, Lin Feng and I were chatting in the tent when suddenly, an assassin came and as Lin Feng saved me, I was kidnapped. After that, the kidnapper confirmed that he received orders from the Holy Courtyard and Uncle Duan, who were cooperating with MOU. Duan Tianlang was also plotting against Lin Feng. I understand, said Duan Wuya while slightly nodding and then immediately said, Xinyi, you went through many hardships because of me. When he finished talking, Duan Wuya walked back towards Duan Tianlang, who started feeling uncertain. Duan Tianlang didn't fear many people, but Duan Wuya was one of those he feared. Duan Wuya's way of working wasn't easy to understand. There were very few people who could guess what he was thinking. Then, Lin Feng and Lu Xanlan managed to encircle the enemy in Duanren City and burnt the city, killing a few 100,000 enemy soldiers. Then they were forced to retreat back to MOU. Duan Tianlang, would you like to say anything about this? Duan Tianlang was fixedly staring at Duan Wuya and said, no. Alright, said Duan Wuya while nodding and continued. During the battle, a few 100,000 soldiers were sacrificed, but regardless of that, Lin Feng and the princess have come back to the imperial city alive and the invading army has been repelled. Besides, there was also a huge misunderstanding about Lu Xanlan, right? That's right, said Duan Tianlang, who didn't feel like nodding anymore. Good, said Duan Wuya while nodding. He started walking on the death sentence stage and glanced at the crowd. He then said, the dead are already gone and I am not looking for the guilty party any longer, but my family has falsely accused General Lu Xanlan. General Lu Xanlan, the Divine Arrow, has always been loyal, devoted, and courageous. He has always fought for the country. We can't forget that. I will report all of this to my father. I would like to grant Lu Xanlan with the status of Imperial Minister, and he will also retain his status as a general. Besides, we will grant Zhou Qixia with a posthumous title for his courage and loyalty. He was conferring an imperial title upon Lu Xanlan and a posthumous title upon Zhou Qixia. For Lu Xanlan, that didn't matter much. In Duanren City, he was already like a king. As far as Zhou Qixia, what was the point in granting him a title? He was already dead. But Duan Wuya's point was more about admitting that the imperial family had made mistakes. They had unjustly accused Lu Xanlan, but they recognized his loyalty and courage. Uncle, do you agree with these things? Said Duan Wuya while looking at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was surprised and had no choice but to nod. They were rendering justice to Lu Xanlan and at the same time establishing Duan Tianlang's own guilt. Lu Xanlan retained his title as a general. General, what do you think about it? Asked Duan Wuya to Lu Xanlan. Lu Xanlan still had Zhou Qixia's corpse leaning against him. He slowly looked at the Qixia troops. He looked expressionless. I, Lu Xanlan, am grateful to the second prince. Thank you for your kindness. I am willing to accept these titles, said Lu Xanlan sounding indifferent. General, shouted the thousands of soldiers. How could he accept? Accepting meant letting Duan Tianlang get away with it. Lu Xang looked at the crowd. Many of the soldiers were looking at Lin Feng. Lu Xanlan sighed but also felt gratified. Lin Feng could now lead a whole army without Lu Xanlan's help. Officer Zhou's last wish was to grant Lin Feng the status of officer of the Qixia after his death. From today, Lin Feng, you are the officer of the Qixia army. I will first bring the soldiers back to Duanren City and then hand the army over to you. Forget about what happened today, said Lu Xanlan. Immediately after, he jumped on a horse while carrying Zhou Qixia's corpse in his arms. A wave of sorrow filled the atmosphere. Everybody could feel how desperate and sad Lu Xanlan felt. They had fought loyally for their country and this was how they were repaid. When Lin Feng heard Lu Lan, he calmly nodded. He, of course, knew what Lu Lan had meant. He was hoping that no more blood of the people he cared about would be spilt, so he wanted Lin Feng to forget about what had happened with Duan Tianlang. If Lin Feng continued his verbal attacks against Duan Tianlang, the blood of the soldiers would inevitably flow. Lu Lan didn't want such a thing to happen again. When Lin Feng saw Lu Lan leave, he sighed. What a sorrowful hero. Duan Wuya was relieved to see that Lu Lan had accepted. Immediately after, he said, Lin Feng, with your strategy, you managed to kill hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers and repel their army. Then, you traveled into the enemy country to rescue the princess and returned her safely to the imperial city. General Lu Lan just granted you the title of officer. I, as a representative of the imperial family, also confer Lin Feng a title, the title of Marquis in your fief is Yangzhou City. Chapter 247, The New Officer Marquis of Yangzhou City? The crowd was stupefied. Officer of the Qixie troops and Marquis of the fief of Yangzhou. In Shuiyu, those who had the most power after the imperial family were imperial ministers and directly below them was Marquis. Some Marquis reigned over a village while some others reigned over a city. Owning a city was required to be considered as a true Marquis. Even though Yangzhou City wasn't very big, Duan Wuya's move was of the highest significance. He had made Lin Feng into a true Marquis. He had given Lin Feng incredible power. From that moment, Yangzhou City belonged to Lin Feng. Every inhabitant of Yangzhou was under Lin Feng's control and all of their lives belonged to him. At that moment, a realization flashed through Lin Feng's eyes. He realized that Duan Wuya was honoring his promise. He had hoped that Lin Feng would perform meritorious acts during the war so that he could provide him with a social status. Now that Lin Feng was back in the imperial city, Duan Wuya was granting Lin Feng with a social status and at the same, he was directly implying that Lin Feng was part of his faction. Thank you, your highness, said Lin Feng in a low voice. Of course, he wasn't going to refuse Duan Wuya's offer. There were many strong cultivators in Shuiyu and Lin Feng still wasn't extremely strong. Receiving such an opportunity was a great chance for him. Don't get too happy yet. My father still has to make the final decision, said Duan Wuya while smiling warmly. Even though he was saying that, the whole crowd knew that everything was already set in stone. The final decision was just part of the process. Once the prince announced it, it was confirmed. If Duan Wuya wasn't sure about what he said, he wouldn't have said it in front of everyone. If the decision was overturned, he would have lost face. Lin Feng slightly nodded and remained silent. Duan Wuya turned towards Duan Xinyi and said, Xinyi, that guy, Meng Chong, did he really attack you? Was Meng Gufeng really there, on the gate with him? Duan Xinyi looked at Duan Wuya and nodded. Yes, everybody saw us outside of the imperial city. Meng Chong gave the troops the orders to kill Lin Feng and me. Besides, Meng Gufeng didn't want to allow me entry into the imperial city. Duan Wuya slightly nodded and said, Meng Gufeng was an officer and he committed a terrible crime. He illegally granted power to Meng Chong, who then used that power to try and kill my little sister. A soldier of the imperial city, who wants to kill the princess, deserves death. When the crowd heard Duan Wuya, they were surprised. Meng Gufeng and Meng Chong had already died. Why was Duan Wuya still talking about them? But at the moment, when they were asking themselves questions, Duan Wuya looked at Meng Han. The crowd was wondering what was going on. Meng Han's heart also started accelerating. He had the impression that something ominous was going to happen. A moment before, he had made Duan Wuya lose face by supporting Duan Tianlang. Officer Meng Gufeng attempted to assassinate the princess. Even though he is dead already, his brother Meng Han is still the officer of the Imperial Guards. I think that it is necessary to carry out a full investigation. Meng Han, you are already not an appropriate choice to occupy the function of officer of the Imperial Guards. When Duan Wuya finished talking, people's hearts were racing. The second prince was extremely fierce and harsh. Meng Han couldn't refute his argument. Meng Han's heart violently pounded as well. He wanted Duan Wuya to die for finding such an excuse to dismiss him. Meng Han turned around and looked at Duan Tianlang, who remained silent. Duan Tianlang was already in a critical situation himself. Duan Wuya hadn't decided what he wanted to do with him, otherwise, he wouldn't remain so polite. At that moment though, he didn't want to anger the second prince. The second prince was fierce, intrepid and tough. Meng Han saw that Duan Tianlang remained silent. He then said to Duan Wuya, Your Highness, Meng Gufeng committed crimes, but what does that have to do with me? Even though he was my brother, I know nothing about that. How can you blame me and dismiss me from my function as an officer of the Imperial Guard? Meng Han, I didn't say that it had something to do with you either, but Meng Gufeng was involved in an assassination attempt on the princess of the imperial family. I, as the second prince, must investigate. It is my duty as I don't understand the whole situation. Wait until we have gathered all of the facts with a thorough investigation, and if you are absolutely clean, you will be able to return to your post as an officer of the Imperial Guard. Duan Wuya's argument sounded quite logical, but everybody knew that Meng Han was being relieved of his position as an officer of the Imperial Guard. It would be extremely difficult for him to hold such a high position again. It was actually almost impossible. I, Meng Han, am innocent, said Meng Han coldly. He was standing tall and upright and fixedly staring at Duan Wuya. At that moment, he was still in a position of power, with the Imperial Guards obeying his orders. If the second prince wanted to attack him, it wouldn't be that easy. However, as time went on, people would come to assist him. Meng Han, how audacious. How does he even have the courage to talk to the second prince that way? It seems like there are some people from above supporting Meng Han, whispered the people far away in the crowd. Meng Han had immediately contradicted Duan Wuya in front of everybody. He. Duan Wuya laughed, his smile hadn't disappeared. Meng Han, what you mean is that I am groundlessly dismissing you from your functions? Do you mean that you will not obey my orders? You, Meng Han, intend to do what, keep your function as an officer by force? How could I, Meng Han, not obey the second prince's order? It's just that the function of officer of the Imperial Guard is very important. Apart from me, nobody else can do it. Besides, the Imperial Guards also consider me as their brothers, it is not their wish to see anyone replace me. Is that so? Asked Duan Wuya with an evil smile on his face which made Meng Han's facial expression change. CRR. A faint and subtle sound spread in the air. Meng Han was violently shaking and breathing heavily. Blood sprayed from his mouth. Not only was Meng Han's heart pounding, but the crowd were also on edge from watching this. Blood was unceasingly flowing from Meng Han's mouth. He lowered his head and only saw the tip of a silver spear that had pierced through his chest from behind. The Imperial Guards were like his brothers and didn't want to see anyone replace him? His voice was still resonating in people's minds, but the reality was much harsher. Meng Han moved his body, he wanted to turn around, but the spear was not moving. Suddenly, a deadly energy penetrated his body and destroyed his organs. The crowd was astonished. Blood sprayed out from his mouth and his lifeless body slowly collapsed onto the floor. After Meng Han collapsed, the high-ranking soldiers who were behind him were absolutely calm. Their expression hadn't changed whatsoever. They all looked extremely serene and peaceful. There were about 30 guards in this high-ranking group. They were all young, but their coldness was enough to make other people's hearts feel a tinge of fear. Meng Han's brother, Meng Feng, attempted to kill the princess. Meng Han refused to admit it and kept contradicting Your Highness over and over again. I, Yu the non-commissioned officer of the Imperial Guards, killed him for his insubordination. Please forgive me for taking action, Your Highness. Yu was kneeling down and bowing in front of Duan Wuya. Behind Yu, the army of Imperial Guards remained motionless. All of them looked calm and serene as if they were not surprised at all. They almost agreed with how the events had played out. Everybody was astonished by the coldness of that scene. Meng Feng had been plotting against my little sister and wanted to kill her. Meng Han hasn't expressed any regret at all and refused to acknowledge his brother's crime. Besides, he was extremely rude to me. Even though Yu killed Meng Han and that is a crime, it is still a sign of loyalty and devotion to the Imperial family. Duan Wuya was speaking slowly and then continued, Today, Meng Han died, but it is required for the guards to have an officer. You are, for the time being, promoted to the position of officer of the Imperial Guards. Thank you, Your Highness, said Yu while respectfully bowing and kneeling down. Immediately after, he stood up. At the same time, the high-ranking Imperial Guards behind him also bowed respectfully and shouted in unison, His Highness is wise and kind, we thank you for our new officer. All the ordinary Imperial Guards were stupefied and were just realizing what had happened. They then slowly knelt down and shouted in unison, His Highness. Thank you for our new officer. These extremely loud voices were resonating through the crowd. People's hearts were violently pounding, they were unable to calm down. How fierce and powerful. Duan Wuya could control the Imperial Guard so easily, his methods were intense. If the crowd didn't know that Yu was one of Duan Wuya's factions, all sorts of rumors would be spread. Lin Feng calmly smiled at Duan Wuya but was still feeling a bit cold in his heart. Duan Wuya was dangerous, extremely dangerous. Chapter 248, You Will Fight. Everybody, stand up, said Duan Wuya while waving his hand. The ones who were still kneeling down slowly stood up, but for a long time, they were unable to calm down. A position as important as officer of the Imperial Guard had been transferred so easily. Duan Wuya's opinion was that there was nothing special or surprising about it. It was as if the Imperial Guard didn't mean that much to him. Yu, now you are the officer of the Imperial Guard, you know what you have to do. Yu nodded and bowed while saying, Your Highness, I will leave with the guards now and patrol the streets to ensure the residents' safety. All right, you can go, said Duan Wuya while waving. Immediately after, several tens of thousands of guards left. Only those from Duanren City, who were surrounding the death sentence stage, were still there. Nobody could threaten them. Duan Tianlang and his son's facial expression was growing more and more hideous. Duan Tianlang had wanted to kill Lu Sanlan, but at the crucial moment, Lin Feng had appeared with Duan Xinyi. They had rushed over and killing Lu Sanlan had become impossible, he was going to stay alive. Besides, Duan Han wanted to marry Lu Fei. Using Lu Sanlan's life as a bargaining tool, he had been blackmailing her. If she wasn't willing to engage in a relationship with him, he would turn his back on Lu Sanlan, who would then die. Lu Fei hated him and didn't want to become his wife, she rejected his offer. What was making them boil with envy was that Lin Feng had become a marquis, the officer of the Qixia army, and had obtained the control of his hometown. Besides, Duan Wuya had also appointed a new person to be the officer of the Imperial Guards. It was a crushing defeat for them. All these things had happened because of one person, Lin Feng. At that moment, Duan Tianlang and his son were looking at Lin Feng with ice-cold glares. Lin Feng turned around and looked at them. His face was filled with killing intent and he made no attempt to hide it. Lin Feng, we're stopping this for the time being, said Duan Wuya in a low voice when he sensed Lin Feng was ready to kill. Duan Tianlang had a high status, he was a noble from the Duan clan. Duan Tianlang was a member of the imperial family. Killing him isn't as easy as killing Meng Han, it would need a justified reason. Lin Feng had no excuse to kill Duan Tianlang at that moment. Yes, I understand, Your Highness. What happened today is over, for the time being, said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. The soldiers sighed. Duan Tianlang would stay alive after all he had done, even though the blood of so many people was on his hands. Of course, they weren't blaming Lin Feng. What he had done wasn't easy at all. If Lin Feng hadn't been there, Lu Zonglan would have been executed and they would have been doomed as well, as they would have been considered as a rebel army. But, at that moment, Lin Feng turned around and looked at Duan Tianlang and Duan Han. He said, what happened today is over for now, but last time, Duan Tianlang brought an army to exterminate the Yunhai sect. The Yunhai sect turned into a bloodbath. I, Lin Feng, as a disciple of the Yunhai sect, need to get my revenge because of the hatred left deep within my heart. Therefore, the enmity between Duan Tianlang and me will never end without his death. The crowd was stupefied. It wasn't over. Lin Feng used to be a disciple of the Yunhai sect, therefore, he had an excuse for not letting past grievances be settled. So that's how it is. Duan Tianlang exterminated the Yunhai sect, of which Lin Feng used to be a disciple. His hatred for Duan Tianlang should be endless. How could he forget such a thing? Duan Tianlang is his enemy and the hatred is too deeply engraved in his heart. There is no solution. With such justification, Duan Wuya cannot say anything either. People in the crowd were all trying to understand the situation. Then, they saw Lin Feng turn around. He looked at the troops and at Ren Chengquang in particular. Officer Ren, sorry for causing you trouble, please take the troops out of the city and wait for me there. I have something to do here, I will come to you when I'm done, said Lin Feng to Ren Chengquang. Immediately, many started shouting from within the army. We're not leaving, the officer is here, we're staying. Yes, we will stay with our officer. The Qixia troops were shouting in protest. The crowd was surprised. Lin Feng was so young and his troops were already extremely loyal and devoted to him, these feelings were already deeply engraved into their hearts. Surprisingly, even before Lu Zonglan had assigned Lin Feng as their new officer, they have already regarded him as their leader. Get the hell out of here, all of you. If you don't hurry, I'll get angry, said Lin Feng sounding ice cold. The troops were all a bit surprised. Officer Ren, sorry for the inconvenience. Lin Feng coldly looked at the troops and then at Ren Chengquang. If they stayed with him, it would be the same as continuing to talk about the problems that happened on that day. Even though in itself, it was the same, it was no longer about the grievance between Duan Tianlang and the Qixia army. Lin Feng needed to justify his reason for revenge because Duan Wuya was there. Duan Wuya had freed Lu Zonglan, giving him the title of Imperial Minister, he had given Lin Feng the title of Marquis, all these things were supposed to make them stop pursuing issues caused by the war. If Lin Feng continued, Duan Wuya would not tolerate it. Therefore, at that moment, he gave a new reason, the Yunhai sect had been destroyed, the troops thus had to leave as it did not involve them. Alright, said Ren Chengquang. He perfectly understood Lin Feng. Ren Chengquang shouted, troops, listen to your orders, leave the imperial city immediately. After saying that, Ren Chengquang turned around and slowly left. The troops, even though they were doing it against their own will, still obeyed Lin Feng's order and galloped away. Immediately after, Ren Chengquang also left with them. A short time later, all the troops had left the imperial city. The area seemed deserted. In the entire area, the only ones left were Lin Feng, Meng Qing, the Celestial Sword Battalion, Duan Wuya, Duan Xanye, Duan Tianlang and his son. At that moment, Duan Tianlang narrowed his eyes and evilly stared at Lin Feng. That boy wasn't going to give up. Duan Wuya hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be so stubborn either, but Lin Feng had mentioned the extermination of the Yunhai sect and his status as a disciple of the Yunhai sect. Of course, his heart was filled with hatred. Lin Feng, shouted Duan Wuya at that moment. Lin Feng turned around and immediately heard him say, Lin Feng, Duan Tianlang is an imperial family member, his title of being an imperial family member is higher than that of Marquis, more respectable, you cannot attack him. I know, said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. Duan Wuya was a bit surprised, since Lin Feng knew, what else did he want? Your Highness, Duan Tianlang is a member of the imperial family and your uncle, his status is respectable and extremely high, I will obviously not attack him, said Lin Feng sounding detached. The crowd didn't understand him at all. But then they heard Lin Feng continue, however, back in the past, Duan Tianlang had brought his son along, Duan Han, who helped him to slaughter the Yunhai sect, my sect. Duan Han is extremely arrogant and thinks he is better than me, he even said that I wouldn't withstand a single attack when we fought. Now, Duan Han, the young noble without an incredible status, is before me. I, Lin Feng, am already a marquis. It should be enough for me to have a battle against him. Right here, right now, I would like him to enlighten me as he said he would in the past. When the crowd heard Lin Feng, they immediately understood who his target was, it wasn't Duan Tianlang but Duan Han. Lin Feng was challenging Duan Han. However, Duan Han, at that moment, would never want to fight. He remembered that day, at the Yunhai sect, he thought that he was extremely strong, but then at that moment, fighting against Lin Feng had become difficult for him. Lin Feng had always been stronger than Duan Han. Duan Han didn't have the courage to fight against Lin Feng anymore. Duan Han felt awkward and was staring Lin Feng. He had a hideous facial expression. How was he supposed to accept Lin Feng's challenge? We refuse. Duan Han and I have things to do, we have no time, said Duan Tianlang sounding cold and detached. Things to do, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. Duan Tianlang, when you went to destroy the Yunhai sect, did you ask the people of the Yunhai sect if they would accept? Duan Tianlang narrowed his eyes. That was ridiculous, how could they accept? Duan Tianlang, when the princess was taken away, your troops blocked my path and tried to kill me. Did you ask me if I had the time? Lin Feng ignored Duan Tianlang and continued, besides, Duan Tianlang, when you and your son set a trap in order to kill me which led to the death of hundreds of thousands from the Shuiyu army, then deserted the battlefield in order to rush back and try to have Lu Sanlan executed, did you ask everybody else if they accepted? Lin Feng's voice was growing louder and louder. A cold and deadly energy emerged from his body. Lin Feng, who was always calm, was furious. How powerful. What Lin Feng meant is that there was no choice, he was fighting Duan Han regardless of who stood in his way. Lin Feng had an evil smile on his face and was staring at Duan Han. He then said in an ice-cold tone, Duan Han, back in the days, at the Yunhai sect, you considered everyone beneath your attention but our battle was not allowed an end. You have to treat a man as he treated you. Today, we finish our battle. When Lin Feng finished talking, he started walking forward. That battle could happen because of a single justifiable excuse. It wasn't about wanting to battle, it was about finishing their unfinished battle. In the world of cultivation, Lin Feng was always moving closer to his goal of soaring in the clouds. Chapter 249, Lin Feng's Army. Try if you dare, shouted Duan Tianlang furiously. He then started walking forward and a deadly chi emerged from his body. Lin Feng surprisingly wanted to kill Duan Han, his son. How could Duan Tianlang accept that? Stop, shouted a furious Meng Qing. Ice chi and force invaded the atmosphere. Meng Qing took a few steps and landed in front of Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang also had the strength of the Xian Qi layer. If Lin Feng wanted to kill Duan Han, how could he resist to Duan Tianlang? Obviously, Meng Qing had to get involved. Lin Feng didn't need to say anything, that was obvious. Gotcha. Even more ice appeared in the atmosphere. Duan Tianlang was surprised, his facial expression was hideous. An incredible quantity of sword energy emerged from his body. Duan Tianlang had a blood spirit and had awakened the strength within his blood, but that strength was too weak, therefore, he was also using his sword spirit. Duan Han also had a sword spirit. Dual spirit. A long sword appeared which pointed towards the sky. His sword spirit and the sword in his hand seemed to be in perfect symbiosis, both as sharp as the other. Besides, at that moment, Lin Feng was slowly walking towards Duan Han. Each and every step that Lin Feng took made Duan Han's heartbeat grew faster. Duan Han didn't stop retreating backwards. Back in the past, at the Yunhai sect, you were high-spirited, vigorous and daring. Today, you are a scared cowardly mutt who keeps on flinching, you don't even dare to fight. Lin Feng said these words jokingly. He wasn't in a hurry to kill Duan Han. He was convinced that Duan Tianlang would also remember Meng Qing and her strength, allowing him to see his son, Duan Han, get killed without being able to do anything in retaliation. Lin Feng wanted to make Duan Tianlang understand that, back in the days, he had the power to bully Lin Feng but now, Lin Feng could slowly kill his son right in front of him and he would not be able to lift a finger. He would show him how cruel he could truly be and make his son suffer in his place. When the people saw Lin Feng slowly walking towards Duan Han, their hearts also started beating faster. When Duan Wuya saw that Lin Feng wanted to kill Duan Han, an offspring of the Duan family, he surprisingly didn't try to block him, which meant that he tacitly agreed. Die! Lin Feng was getting nearer and nearer. Duan Tianlang shouted loudly while his sword slashed through the atmosphere. An endless quantity of sword chi appeared and slashed through the world of ice. The sound of sword energy clashing against ice energy filled the air. Ice Diamond, said Meng Qing in a low voice. She waved her hand and an ice crystal appeared and froze Duan Tianlang's sword entirely. Lin Feng was very near to Duan Han. A sharp and deadly energy completely enveloped Duan Han's body. It was filled with deadly chi. Under that deadly energy, Duan Han didn't even have the courage to resist. Lin Feng's aura of a death god sufficed to make him tremble in fear. Could it be that you are afraid now? When you were at the top of the cliff face, you were cold-bloodedly watching the Yunhai sect members get slaughtered, you were feeling comfortable and satisfied, right? When you and your father got a few 100,000 soldiers killed, didn't you have the feeling that your plan was a great success? Lin Feng's voice sounded evil and its coldness invaded Duan Han's heart. Arg! Duan Tianlang shouted like an animal, abandoned his sword and jumped towards Duan Han. Frozen heart, said Meng Qing in a low voice. Duan Tianlang started shaking violently. He had the feeling that his heart was being completely frozen. Blood started flowing from his mouth. But Duan Tianlang didn't pay attention to that, all that mattered to him was his son couldn't die. Oh, you came, said Lin Feng with an ice-cold smile on the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, his silhouette disappeared, he was absorbed into the void of darkness. Die, said a voice coming from the void. The crowd saw, in the middle of that emptiness, a cross appeared. That cross was resplendent and dazzling to the eyes. Shoo! The cross turned into a sanguinary sword. On Duan Han's neck there was a small cross, a small bloody cross. Duan Tianlang stopped moving. His mouth was wide open. He was just feeling infinitely cold as he was blankly staring at his son, Duan Han, who slightly lifted his head to look at his father. Duan Tianlang could see the cross-shaped mark on his neck and the blood endlessly gushing out from it. Duan Han, shouted Duan Tianlang with a husky voice. He was shaking from head to toe. He grabbed his son and hugged him tightly. He saw his son's lips, which were moving, but he couldn't speak a word as he was drowning in his own blood. At that moment, his son collapsed in his arms. Cough, cough. Duan Tianlang coughed and blood was forced out of his mouth. He looked deathly pale. His son was dead, he had been killed by Lin Feng and died in his arms. At the moment, when he had almost reached his son, Lin Feng forced him to watch his son drown in his own blood. Invisible like a shadow, invisible and silent, that was the deadly cross shadow. It hurts, doesn't it, Duan Tianlang? Back then, at the Yunhai sect, when you slaughtered all those people, or after when you set a trap for a few 100,000 soldiers, you were not thinking about their friends and their families, you also didn't think about the pain that they would have to go through, said Lin Feng, who was standing behind Duan Tianlang watching the scene. Lin Feng furiously shouted Duan Tianlang while releasing a deadly energy. You don't need to shout, I know that you wish you could hack me into a million pieces, I understand your hatred because I feel that hatred inside me, and my hatred is much more terrifying than yours, said Lin Feng sounding calm. He then continued, now, it is between you and me. If you have an opportunity to kill me, feel free to try. Because if, someday, I have the opportunity to kill you, I will unleash my hatred and show you no mercy. While talking, Lin Feng turned around, his silhouette flickered and he moved back to his original position. Immediately after, he said to Duan Wuya, Your Highness, I am now taking my leave. Duan Wuya slightly nodded and said, Lin Feng, I will be waiting for your return in the lovesick forest by the lake. Lin Feng muttered something to himself, but immediately after nodded and said, all right. Lin Feng then waved. Those who were wearing bronze masks, even though their faces were covered, all had an aura of satisfaction, they looked inspired and enthusiastic. Many of them used to be Yunhai sect disciples. Duan Tianlang and Duan Han had annihilated the Yunhai sect, which was why they had the slave marks carved into their faces. Duan Tianlang and Duan Han were their sworn enemies. When they saw Lin Feng kill Duan Han and force Duan Tianlang into such a situation, how could they not feel satisfied? They coldly glanced at Duan Tianlang, then turned around and followed Lin Feng. Then, all together, they galloped away. Duan Tianlang was showing no sign of indignation or anger, he didn't do anything irrational. Meng Cheng had already badly injured him. While Meng Cheng was there, it was impossible for him to kill Lin Feng. If he attacked Lin Feng, Meng Cheng would continue to inflict injuries. Who was that beautiful girl, whose face was covered with a fine veil, and why was she following Lin Feng? She was extremely strong. Lin Feng, if I, Duan Tianlang, don't kill you, my life will not be worth living, said Duan Tianlang while feeling that his son's skin was growing colder and more lifeless. He uttered a long and mournful cry. A strong wind blew over the area, everybody was feeling cold. They were looking at the silhouettes slowly disappearing. They all understood that Xueyu had an incredible young genius. He had confined enemy troops in a city, set it on fire, and killed hundreds of thousands of them. He had galloped over an endless distance, saved the princess and brought her back alive, he had killed an officer of the imperial city, he had saved Lu Tsonglan who was about to get executed by Duan Tianlang, he had become a marquis and possessed a city, and then he killed Duan Han in front of his father's eyes. Lin Feng's name was definitely going to be famous in the entire country. Outside of the imperial city, the army had gathered. At that moment, the city gate was open, a group of armored horses passed through it. Immediately, the crowd looked towards the gate. Lin Feng looked at the whole crowd, he was a bit surprised, he looked startled, and moved forward. Besides, 3 silhouettes rushed out to welcome him. These 3 people were precisely, Officer Rin Qingquang, Officer of the Middle Troops, Officer Feng Yuhan, Officer of the Left Troops, and Officer Lei Qingtian, Officer of the Right Troops. Is Uncle Lu in charge of all these troops now? Asked Lin Feng to the 3 officers. At that moment, outside of the city, all the soldiers were wearing red armor, riding Qixia armored horses, they were all Qixia troops. Besides, the other officers were not leading them. Nobody said anything. At that moment, the troops looked towards Lin Feng, and all jumped down from their horses and then all knelt down. We, the Qixia troops, welcome our new officer, said the troops in unison, extremely loudly, making the ground shake. That drew the attention of many people, even of some who were far away. Lin Feng was astonished as well. Everyone stand up. What on earth are you doing? Said Lin Feng. Lin Feng. Ren Shengquang galloped towards Lin Feng and then said, Lin Feng, the general dismissed these troops. Dismissed the troops? Asked Lin Feng a bit surprised. What was Lu Tsonglan doing? But apart from a small minority of them who wanted to follow the general, everybody refused to leave. He only brought those troops who would only follow him back to Duanren City, leaving us behind to wait for you. Wait for me. Indeed, wait for you, said Ren Shengquang in a calm and solemn way. He then slowly said, Lin Feng, the general said there was no point staying in Duanren City because if MOU tried to attack again, there would be no force left to resist them. Therefore, the general told the whole army to stay here. Lin Feng, now, you are a marquis, you are the officer of the Qixia troops, and since you own the fief of Yangzhou City, you can have your own personal army. The general told us to stay with you and pledge our loyalty to you rather than the country of Xueyu. As your personal army, we can go to Yangzhou City, your fief. From now on, the Qixia army will listen to your orders, as well as ours. Ren Shengquang's words made Lin Feng's heart pound. Lu Tsonglan was giving the elite troops of Xueyu, the Qixia army, as well as its 3 officers, to him as his own private army? In any case, he was now a marquis, he had the space to accommodate his own personal army in Yangzhou City. Then, the Yunhai sect. Sigh. Lin Feng raised his head to the sky and took a deep breath. He looked at Ren Qingquang and said, I agree. Chapter 250, The Snow Dragon Guards. In the lovesick forest, it was as usual, misty, there was a thick fog floating above the ground. It looked like heaven on earth. In the pavilion, 2 people were drinking lovesick alcohol. Duan Wuya was one of them. The other one was a smart, elegant, handsome and spirited man. That man looked natural and unrestrained. At that moment, he was still wearing his armor, the armor of an officer. He looked majestic. It was the officer of the Imperial Guards, Yu. What do you think, said Duan Wuya sounding indifferent while sipping on his glass of lovesick alcohol. Your Highness, before the battle, I had already secured the situation, all the Imperial Guards are now in our faction. Now, it is only about consolidating and purging. From today, the guards are yours, Your Highness. Oh, said Duan Wuya while lightly nodding. It was impossible to see if he was happy or worried. He was expressionless and uncommunicative. At that moment, someone wearing black clothes was approaching and arrived at the pavilion. He slightly bowed in front of the second prince and said, Your Highness. Nanshan, sit down, said Duan Wuya while waving and smiling softly and warmly. Nanshan slightly nodded and immediately sat down opposite Yu. He said, Your Highness, Lu Lan went back to Duanren City but he gave his army to Lin Feng. He wants them to stay with him. Great news. Duan Wuya paused and then said, while nodding, maybe then he'll be able to use them for a good cause. Yu, the Imperial Guards need you, you should go back, said Duan Wuya to Yu. Yu slightly nodded and took leave. Immediately after, he left the pavilion. Nanshan, while looking at Yuji's silhouette leave, said, Your Highness, congratulations on gaining the Imperial Guards. Duan Wuya shook his head and said, Today's greatest achievement is not the Imperial Guards. Duan Tianlang, Meng Han and the others didn't care about Your Highness and worked against Your Highness. Meng Han is already dead, Duan Tianlang is mourning over his son's death, the others should be perfectly aware of the situation as well, said Nanshan. Duan Wuya was usually always so kind and soft. Because of that, many people forgot that he was also extremely powerful. Nanshan had been following Duan Wuya for many years, he perfectly understood that the people who underestimated Duan Wuya would end up in tragic situations. Even the extremely strong, powerful, ruthless and cruel high official, the crown prince, didn't dare look down on his brother. That's not how it is, said Duan Wuya while shaking his head. Nanshan was a bit surprised and immediately said, Lin Feng. Indeed, that's Lin Feng. Duan Wuya, while slightly nodding his head, said, Everybody now knows that Lin Feng is one from my faction. Even though the Imperial Guards protect the city and constitute an important provision of force, in comparison with these troops, they are still too weak. These troops are my goal. Duan Tianlang is too arrogant and looks down on everyone else, he's a moron. Surprisingly, he dared touch Duan Xin, he doesn't know but from that moment, he doomed himself. He still thinks that there is a chance with my brother, but he's nothing but a dead man. Duan Wuya, at that moment, didn't look like a friendly person. His eyes were filled with sharpness, brutality and coldness. He hadn't been worried about Duan Xin being kidnapped by MOU troops, they wouldn't have killed Duan Xin but he hadn't thought that Duan Tianlang would try to kill Lin Feng and Duan Xin on the way back. Nanshan could sense Duan Wuya's coldness. He knew that if Duan Tianlang was still alive, but it was only a matter of time. What Duan Tianlang didn't understand was that he wouldn't be able to achieve his aim if the princess died, he would be doomed. No matter the winner, Duan Wu Dao or Duan Wuya, Dan Tianlang would have been killed for murdering Duan Xin. Duan Tianlang still thought that Duan Wu Dao would agree with him killing the princess. Maybe if Duan Tianlang had the princess blood on his hands, Duan Wu Dao wouldn't say anything initially but in the end, he would end up like everyone else who had committed a serious crime. Such things were typical in political affairs. They were doing things behind the curtains, in secret, and things were difficult to understand. It was difficult to see where each piece was placed on the board. Nanshan, you tell me, how can I get these troops, said Duan Wuya. Nanshan was surprised, shook his head and said, I don't know. Nanshan knew what Duan Wuya meant, the most mysterious army of Shuiyu, the Snow Dragon Guards. The Snow Dragon Guard unit was composed of the best cultivators within Shuiyu. It is absolutely normal for you not to know, said Duan Wuya while smiling, the old man will, sooner or later, stop reigning over the country, allowing my brother and me to struggle for power and influence. Leading the ministers and so on will not be a problem but the one who manages to obtain the Snow Dragon troops, will be the real emperor. Nanshan remained silent. He didn't know much about the Snow Dragon troops apart from the fact that they were extremely strong. At that moment, Duan Wuya raised his head and gazed into the distance. Your Highness, I will leave now, said Nanshan while getting up but Duan Wuya shook his head and said, No need, stay here. In the distance, Lin Feng had appeared. He was slowly and silently walking towards the pavilion, like a leaf floating on the wind, as if he was in perfect fusion with the earth. The energy which was emerging from his body was mysterious. Duan Wuya was a bit surprised. What is Lin Feng's cultivation level now, thought Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya couldn't sense Lin Feng's cultivation level but it seemed like since he had gone to Duanren City, he had changed a lot. Your Highness, said Lin Feng, who had arrived at the pavilion a moment later. Duan Wuya nodded. Lin Feng, hurry up and sit down, said Duan Wuya looking friendly again. He once again looked easy to get along with. He seemed to be a warm and soft person. Lin Feng slightly nodded and sat down opposite Nanshan. This time, when Lin Feng entered into the forest, he didn't feel strange at all, it was obviously thanks to Duan Wuya. Your Highness, you asked me to personally come to the lovesick forest, what do you need to speak to me about, asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you don't need to be so meticulous with me. Above all, I invited you to show you my gratitude for having brought Duan Xin back safely. Duan Wuya poured some alcohol into Lin Feng's glass and immediately downed his glass. Lin Feng grabbed the glass of alcohol and brought it to his lips. While drinking, he said in a low voice, "Your Highness, the princess was missing. It was my duty to bring her back." Lin Feng continued drinking the lovesick alcohol and a mysterious feeling invaded his heart. "How's the feeling?" asked Duan Wuya while smiling. "Even though I can't appreciate alcohol that much, I know that lovesick alcohol is unique and original," replied Lin Feng while smiling. "What I want to ask you is if XINE appeared in your heart while drinking lovesickness," said Duan Wuya with a smile yet not a smile on his face. "Lin Feng, it seems that you do not have the same feelings as my sister." Lin Feng was a bit shocked and then smiled wryly. That alcohol was supposed to make a person's most loved one appear in one's heart. In Lin Feng's heart, except for the image of a pure and holy silhouette wearing long white clothes, there was also a small part which belonged to the princess. He remembered that day at the Z government, Duan Xine had really moved him to the extent that her silhouette appeared in his mind. Besides, in his heart, there was another girl, wearing red clothes. She was gentle and demure. Lin Feng was a bit perplexed. He believed in true love. "Alright, this also none of my business, Lin Feng. I officially granted you a title. You can now officially claim it. You can also go to Yangzhou City to get your fief." When Duan Wuya saw that Lin Feng remained silent, he also didn't insist. He instead changed the subject. "At the end of the year, soon the annual New Year's holiday will be upon us. I will go back at that moment," replied Lin Feng. He and his father had been expelled out of the Lin clan, so it was better to wait for a complete year to be over before returning. Maybe he would be able to arrive for the Lin clan annual meeting too. "Alright, in a few days I will send people to the Celestial Academy to come and pick you up to officially to receive your title," said Duan Wuya. "Alright," said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. "Your Highness, I would like to ask you for help. I need your connections to help me find someone." "Tell me who is," said Duan Wuya while nodding. "My father, Lin Hai," said Lin Feng slowly. Lin Hai said that he was going to the Imperial City, but many things had happened to Lin Feng and he didn't even know where his father was. Lin Feng had no news, so he hoped that Duan Wuya would be able to help him as the city was extremely large. "Your father, Lin Hai," said Duan Wuya looking pensive, and then immediately nodded and said, "Alright, Lin Feng, leave it to me." "Your Highness, thank you," said Lin Feng while nodding and saluting Duan Wuya with a cupped hand salute. "If you, Your Highness, don't have anything else to add, I will take my leave." "Alright, you can go," said Duan Wuya while nodding and not preventing Lin Feng from leaving. Lin Feng abruptly left the lovesick forest. Outside of the lovesick forest, there was a pure and holy looking silhouette waiting for him. When Lin Feng came out, they left together.